I do think it's exceptionally strange that people persist in nonsensical fantasy stories and think that it's all about just who can tell it best, or like, as long as you can make people have confusion, then everything's alright. Because at the end of the day, the emotionally intelligent and aware people see through at everything, you know, and sincerity and authenticity can't be disguised. Something that actually I have been alchemizing over the past 2 years, it seems that one of the involved parties is sort of dredging up again for, I don't know, whatever chaos reasons they have of implanting these stories into the collective conscious, which are the actual opposite of truth and really just a disguise for who they are. So I thought I'd discuss what I'd alchemized and how I'd transformed the experience of having my Instagram trolled to create a disinformation campaign in order to use me as a scapegoat. So, you know, I don't actually have much of an entitlement, and I didn't think of myself as very important until that moment. And the areas of research that trying to understand that particular diversion tactic took me in, and just also the collective unity with the sincere people who once stood there in the wake of that, have all been wonderful things that have come out of that ghastly situation. And I actually also had to learn some lessons still about the outside world, because I'd been quite insular. You know, my whole family is like that, deceitful and manipulative, so I have chosen to kind of isolate from the world for a little bit while I get my head right. And going out there and seeing just how prevalent this disgusting bending of reality is by delusional people who wish to kind of prevent anyone seeing who they are, really assisted me. And I also learnt a lot about, you know, illness, and what I'd already had a sort of observational thing of what this guy was telling me stuff like cancer and stuff is, and how you heal yourself, and kind of this attitude that comes along with some people when they have cancer, and how it's just this toxic, heavy fog of like, oh, woe is me, which is in actual fact just karma. I also realised in the wake of that I'm an Ophiuchus, that I actually am an incredibly powerful witch, because a lot of these things that they claimed were me being a mason, you know, having a dog bandana that I'd created that had a checkerboard on it, and having the elements and ether on my hands, stuff like that, well, I realised that was just my intuition and my, like, divine gift, that I am actually the ultimate psychic. And then I went back and I realised that everything I'd ever made was either a message from one of the people I'd been in my previous lives that was living in my macabre, or you know, a message to myself that I needed to uncover and alchemize, that I needed to transcend or turn into something else. Take, for example, my first film, Ollie. Right? At the time, I made it simply because there was some stuff in my childhood that didn't feel right, and I knew that I wanted to kind of unpack that in a creative way. Now, I had to do it in an occult or esoteric way because I was going to ask the people who were responsible for most of it to fund the project. So I turned it into I flipped it. But I was intended to be this little child, Ollie, who, he was going to make a kite. And that's what he wanted to do. And he had to split that kite up, break that kite up, and use it to build this string foam between his two parents' houses, because and it was really a story about this little kid who was quite exceptional, but the world didn't really know what to do with him. And it was my childhood story. I didn't realize it quite at the time because I was so unconscious, but the beautiful thing of it is my intuition, which was the part that told me I needed to make it a story about this guy who wanted to build a kite, but he had to turn it into he had to break the kite apart to use the string to make a phone between his two parents' houses. Well, I just figured out that I am the center point in all of this, diamond with the X through it stuff. The Argyle is all about making sure that I never figure that out. But in my unconscious state, my intuition made me tell this story about a child who broke apart his blood red string that allowed him to fly from the center point of his kite to build a string can phone, which is literally the process that happened to my mind, splitting the hemispheres. So all of this stuff alchemized really well, and it allowed me to reach new levels of this game.